Welcome to the Contract Teardown Show from Law Insider, where legal experts tear down contracts from some of the most well-known companies and high-profile executives around the world.
In this episode, attorney Hannah Baker shares her research into the Twitch affiliate and partnership agreements. So let's tear it down. Hannah Baker, welcome to the Contract Teardown Show. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
I love episodes like this because we're going to talk about things that my kids will actually respect me for. We are talking about the Twitch affiliate agreement. Before we get into this, Hannah, what is this thing? When are we going to see this kind of document?
The Twitch affiliate agreement is the agreement that you sign when you become an affiliate on Twitch, which you can do by meeting some predetermined benchmarks.
I like how you said signed with like a lot of emphasis to be like, we're not actually signing things. We'll dig into that. But before we do, tell us about your background. What brings you to documents like this one?
So I have a vested interest in esports and video game streamers. And as a contributing editor on the Case Western Reserve Law Review, I wrote my comment on Twitch contracts with partners and how partners might be able to have recourse against Twitch when Twitch goes wrong.
Okay, before we dig into it, I want to dig into that because most of the people listening to this have no idea what Twitch is. I didn't know what Twitch was when my kids tried to explain it to me. It was yesterday. Okay, it was a couple weeks ago. But anyway, I didn't totally know what it was. So you wrote this piece, this article that went in the Law Review about a specific instance. Why don't you do me a favor and frame what Twitch is using that story, what happened in the incident that you profiled in your piece?
Absolutely. So to give some context, Twitch is a live streaming platform. It's very similar to YouTube, except everything happens live. And different creators can have different levels of privileges where people can pay to subscribe to their content and ultimately can make quite a bit of money. The story that I profiled in my article was about a streamer named Dr. Disrespect. He now streams on YouTube, but he had a 7-figure exclusivity deal with Twitch to stream exclusively on that platform. And one day he logged into his account and he had been permanently banned without any reason being given. And all of his subscribers had been refunded their subscriptions. So now behind the scenes, there's a lot of back and forth and settlement talks and all kinds of trying to figure out exactly how to settle that, because that's a lot of lost income. Twitch makes up 75% of the market share for live streaming, and not being able to stream on the platform anymore could drastically affect Dr. Disrespect's profits.
Yeah, it's cool drama, and especially because the advice around a lot of these content spaces, and I say this as essentially a content creator, is you should not build on rented land. You should build in your own place. And what they're talking about there is that there are platforms and they become really powerful. And the reason they become really powerful is because we put stuff on there. We're the product on Facebook. And so the advice is don't build on rented land, but it's more complicated than that, both for market reasons and for legal reasons, which we're going to get into in this episode. So we're going to walk through the Twitch affiliate agreement with the perspective that this is someone who is going to be a streamer on the space. Before we dig into it, let's talk about the background terms a little bit. What is the role of an affiliate? I don't know. You know, I can go on YouTube right now and I can post a video on YouTube right now, but that doesn't automatically mean that I'm monetizing. It definitely doesn't mean that I have an exclusivity deal the way that guy did. So, like, what's the relationship? Does everybody sign this who gets on affiliate or on Twitch?
Not necessarily. So there are 3 different tiers of creators on Twitch. There's a regular creator, which would be like you or me making a Twitch account and just streaming for fun. There are certain benchmarks that you can meet to become an affiliate. When you become an affiliate, your content gets monetized. You get ad revenue. People can begin to subscribe to you. They can cheer bits to you, which is a currency on Twitch. So you can start generating money on Twitch. But everybody gets the same affiliate agreement. Everybody gets the same percentage of that subscription revenue. Everybody gets the same amount of money from the ads. However, if you become very successful, you can apply for Twitch's partner program. And Twitch's partner program has individually negotiated contracts with each of their partners where they can negotiate for higher percentage of subscription revenue, exclusivity with the platform. And these partners are at all range of income levels, but there are exclusivity agreements for 7 figures with the platform. And so it can get really intense.
Yeah, it reminds me of what happened with Vine. For people who don't know, Vine sort of disappeared because their creators, there was a dozen of them that said, fine, you're going to give us 7-figure deals and we'll post exclusively here. And Vine said no, and those creators left, and now Vine is dead. So this is really important to the business model. Let's talk about the IP. So in 2.2, it's the live content exclusivity. There's a 24-hour period on here that the content, it says it's exclusive to Twitch, even as to you. During the exclusivity period, you will not permit, authorize any party to broadcast, stream, distribute, exhibit, or otherwise make available the content in any manner. What do you think about the way they're dealing with the exclusivity, the timeline on it in Section 2.2?
So it's important to remember that the affiliate agreement and the partner agreement are not the same. The affiliate agreement, you can't negotiate. If you want to be an affiliate, you have to agree to their terms, contract of adhesion. There's not really much that you can do about it. However, looking at these terms can give us a window into what Twitch finds important. So when we as attorneys are negotiating on behalf of our clients who are seeking to become partners and have individually negotiable contracts, we can use this language that Twitch has used before and figure out how we can best benefit our clients here. So in the context of the affiliate agreement, you can't upload any video of your live streaming content for 24 hours. Which means that you can't upload a VOD to YouTube for at least 24 hours after posting on or after streaming on Twitch. And you also can't multi-stream to multiple platforms, which is a popular thing that a lot of streamers like to do until they get to this affiliate level. Thinking about how you want to formulate content exclusivity language in a partner agreement is important, and Twitch should be paying for it. And that's something to keep in mind as you're negotiating. For example, we have like Nick Merckx, Ninja, and previously Tim the Tapman, Dr. Disrespect, Dr. Lupo. We have a lot of streamers at the very high levels making a lot of money, and they're getting paid for that exclusivity for not having that content anywhere else. So exclusivity is going to be a huge point of negotiation in formulating partner contracts. So that's really important to keep in mind.
Well, and especially because, the point you made about, what was the guy's name? Dr. Dubad? Dr. Do stuff?
Dr. Disrespect.
That guy. When you talked about him, they made this unilateral because he's literally building on rented land. In this case, I assume we don't know the exact terms of his particular contractor, do we? Yeah.
We don't.
But we can pull some truths from this. And if you jump down to 13, to limitation of liability, in all caps, it says we're not liable for lost revenue. They made the decision to pull him off to give everybody their money back. Is 13 really a realistic way to deal with this loss of income if they've got all the control on where the income goes?
That is an excellent point. There was actually some litigation surrounding this recently with a streamer named Phantom Lord. He was a CSGO streamer on Twitch back in 2014. So this was in the younger days of Twitch, I believe before Amazon took them over. He was a top 8 streamer on the platform. He was earning a lot for Twitch at the time. He was earning at least like 10K a month, which at the time was really substantial. Had a partner agreement with Twitch, and they permanently banned him from the platform in a very similar fashion to Dr. Disrespect. Except this time, they alleged his involvement with a CSGO skin gambling website and made some ultimately found to be unsubstantiated allegations against him and yanked his ability to stream on the platform, which, again, Twitch being 75% of the live streaming market share, if you can't stream on Twitch, that is a massive amount of your available income that is shut off. You're never going to be able to get the same audience that you would be able to if you're able to take advantage of the platform. So he sued, ultimately won. But what was interesting is in the course of this lawsuit, there was a hearing regarding the limit on liability. His partner agreement capped Twitch's liability for any issue arising out of the contract at $50K. And he was making at least $10K a month. So if something were to happen, that's not very much to recover in the context of his income, especially given the fact that it would handicap his ability to get sponsorships and endorsements down the line, not just purely revenue from Twitch directly. And the judge, in a very surprising decision, actually ruled that limit on liability was unconscionable and it didn't apply in the hearings. because it was far too low given the income that he was bringing in.
That's interesting. Just to call back the idea of the sponsors, the sponsors are giving these people money on the assumption they're still going to be on the interwebs later.
Yep.
It's interesting that they can just pull that. Well, speaking of litigation, if we jump down to 16 and arbitration, we've talked about arbitration several times. It's interesting in this sort of platform conversation because you've got a relationship like eBay, for example, where famously they do everything in alternative dispute resolution because they're tiny transactions. And so they've had to build a whole system for dealing with these tiny transactions. Do you think arbitration is actually a good solution for the scope of an affiliate, but maybe not good for the higher end relationship you were talking about?
I think it really depends. I think with affiliates, there is such a range of money making going on with affiliates. You have affiliates that, I don't know if you looked in section 4.1, talks about payment terms. Affiliates don't get paid out until they accrue at least $100 in their account. And I personally am friends with affiliates that only get paid maybe twice, maybe 3 times a year. So you have people at the very low end that aren't making that much, probably don't have that much at stake. Alternative dispute resolution would probably make more sense when there just isn't as much at stake. But when you get into 7-figure contracts, there's obviously a lot more at stake there. And there are pros and cons to alternative dispute resolution and going to court. It might be in both parties' best interest to keep things more private and to keep things more confidential. And it also might be to the streamer's benefit to absolutely blast Twitch in court and harm Twitch's reputation. So I'm not necessarily saying that alternative dispute resolution is definitively not good to have in your agreement, but it's important to remember that alternative dispute resolution does benefit Twitch. So you can use that as a bargaining chip. I'm giving you something valuable in the event that you mess up and screw me over. So I need something in exchange for that.
Yeah. Well, looking at 14, the relationship of the parties, this is so fascinating to me. We talked about this with the Uber contract, that Uber will basically make it so hard for you to not work for Uber all the time that functionally you are an independent contractor, or you're not an independent contractor. Functionally, you're an employee. It seems like the same can be true based on what you just said about the range of different, types of creators. It makes perfect sense, maybe, that the relationship of the parties in 14 would be independent contractor for my son deciding to go play Super Mario Bros. I don't know if you could play Super Mario. It's the only video game I can think of for hours.
Oh, yeah. You can do anything you want on Twitch.
Perfect. That seemed way too inclusive for my son. But, if he wants to go do that for a while, he's an independent contractor. He's running his own thing. He's making he's very separate. But some of these people, this is very close to a job. They do this all day. They create a ton of value for Twitch. And presumably Twitch is using a lot of those same incentives that Uber is, that makes it really hard to not be on Twitch all the time. What do you think of the way Twitch is writing up this section about the relationship of the parties? Do you think it's well adapted to the circumstance?
I believe it is. I personally, in my note, you can see I have a huge section discussing this very issue of independent contractors and ultimately organization and how those relate to each other. Any way you cut it, when you analyze the definition of an independent contractor, being a Twitch streamer fits. Because even if you're in a position where this has to be your full-time job and this is all you do, the thing that makes you an independent contractor, ultimately, in my opinion at least, is the fact that you have complete control over your content, over what you do, over how you edit, over your schedule, over everything, which I believe is different to Uber, because Uber dictates exactly how you have to make the pickups, exactly how you pick up customers, exactly what routes you have to take, exactly when you drive. I believe there's definitely more of an argument there for an employee situation. But with Twitch doesn't really tell you what you have to do. They just give you the opportunity to monetize your content. So ultimately, you are a business that is creating content on the platform. This is important to think about, not because it's necessarily something that you can change by contract, but it affects your bargaining power. One thing that a lot of streamers, and actually, YouTube content creators alike have called for unionization of streamers and unionization of content creators. But really, based on the current labor laws, this isn't really possible because everyone is independent contractors. You can't collectively bargain with platforms because it creates antitrust issues. So that's something to think about and something that you can read more about in my law review article.
Gotcha. Well, on number 10, as our last point here under modifications, I love the all caps. If any modification is unacceptable to you, your only recourse is to terminate this agreement. Your continued participation in the program following the effective date of any modification is basically up to you, you dum-dum. You get what you get, as my mom used to say, and you don't throw a fit. What do you think about Section 10 and the modifications?
I think it's a little silly to have a party of the contract have 100% ability to change whatever they want. And if you don't like it, then it's your own fault and just don't use the platform. However, in the context of an affiliate, I mean, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people in the affiliate program. Realistically, it probably wouldn't make much sense to do it any other way, because the alternative is what? Have contact each affiliate individually and get them to sign off on a modification. When you have a contract where it's with such a large number of people, that's kind of the only thing that makes sense. My concern here comes with the idea that Twitch is going to want to reserve as much power for itself in any of its contracts as it can reasonably get away with.
Sure.
And this becomes a bigger issue in partner contracts and where there's a lot more money at stake. And you have streamers like Dr. Disrespect and Phantom Lord where they were unilaterally cut off. We can't see their contracts, but is Twitch allowed to modify those? It's important to remember how Twitch modifying a partner contract is so much more devastating, I would assume, than an affiliate agreement that is with thousands and thousands of people. So making sure that there is language in the modification section that protects your client is super important. Maybe modifications need to be mutually agreed upon. Maybe if Twitch wants to make a modification, extra consideration needs to be there to make sure that it's worth it for the client. There's a lot of ways you can go about this, but it's important to pay attention to because Twitch is going to reserve as much power for itself as possible.
It's an interesting thing, like how do these scaled platform businesses work if you treat them with like normal legal protections, and maybe we say they don't work and that's okay because we said those legal protections matter. I think there's a really big question in there, but I also think you're doing something really interesting with this document that can be applied to a lot of other circumstances, which is when you're getting to these partner level agreements, you're looking at these contracts of adhesion as some kind of lesson, some kind of starting point to tell you this is what the company values, this is the kind of stuff that they'll want to talk about. We can use this in our negotiations later. But it reminds me of when I did mediations in family law, for example, in Texas, which is a very legalistic thing where throughout the whole mediation, you would say, hey, we're trying to come up with something custom and something new, something adapted to you. But if this doesn't work, then we're going to go to court and here's what's going to happen. It seems to me like if you're thinking about this as you're negotiating partnership agreements with this document in the background, you might be rooting yourself in this document in a way that you might not otherwise if you were negotiating from scratch. What do you think about the relationship of these kinds of contracts of adhesion and a negotiated contract with similar parties?
It's so hard to know because the partner contracts are so locked under lock and key. They're so tightly guarded. And the only things that you can know about those contracts are what Twitch or the other parties in those contracts decide to tell you. I'm sure they're very heavily guarded by NDAs. So there's a lot of information that we just can't know, which puts attorneys at a disadvantage when they're going into these negotiations, trying to advocate for their clients as best they can, but they just don't know what they're up against because all of the other agreements are so tightly guarded. And that's why I think using an agreement like this to have an idea of what Twitch is going to want going in is important. Obviously, it's not going to be the same. The way that they treat an agreement that they're going to have with thousands and thousands of people is going to be very different to the agreement that they're going to try and draft with an individual streamer. But you can see what their priorities are. You can see a window into the things that they care about, and you can use that to your advantage to go into negotiations armed with that knowledge of what your client can get, what you can bargain, and what Twitch might be willing to accept.
Gosh, I think it's so fascinating. And to your point, like a lot of the power in that partner negotiation is not coming from this document as a base. It's coming from the fact that it's Twitch. But to your point, like going back to the Vine thing, you actually do have a lot of power. If you're a creator that they really want you to be there, you're actually the product. You have a ton of power. And just drop the Vine story and say, me and my 11 buddies, we're all going to leave and you're all going to be broke and we're going to go find something else. Well, I appreciate you sharing this, Hannah. It's a really interesting example. Tell us again, where do we find the note that you created about this Twitch issue?
So you can actually find my law review article on Case Western Reserve University's law review website, Scholarly Commons, volume 71, issue 4.
And we'll make sure to have that included at the blog post over at lawinsider.com/resources. And if you want to be a guest on the Contract Teardown Show, just email us. We are at community@lawinsider.com. Hannah Baker, thanks again. We'll see you online.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Contract Teardown Show from Law Insider. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show. We really appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.